Ferrari have dropped their 2024 SF24. Let's take a look at it. I'm going to give you my opinion on the new livery, and then I'm going to redesign it and create my own version. Just like I have with all of the cars previously, we're almost done. My name's Tommo. Let's talk about it. So Ferrari, what have you cooked up here? Well, the first thing we were concerned about was obviously going to be the amount of carbon fibre on the car, because that has been somewhat a trend. I mean, just in this ground effect era generally, to be honest. And broadly speaking, we're pretty good. None of the carbon on the car looks out of place at all for me. Not at all, not in the slightest. Red on the halo, red body. Mainly there's a bit of carbon in the gullies where they're kind of outside of the side pods, but I mean, you don't see that angle very often anyway. It's a very red car, and a very red Ferrari always looks good. It's hard to mess this one up. Obviously the pinstriping, yellow and white, is something a bit different. We saw that on the driver suits firstly, which by the way, I think the suits look bloody incredible. I love these. These are top tier. Maybe I'll do a tier list for driver suits. Let me know in the comments down below if you want to see that. They've not used it too much. It's a little bit on the rear wing, obviously on the side pod coming under the Santander down past the shell, and on the kind of top of the nose as well, where the VGW play and Richard Mille is. That's a nice little detail. There are certain sponsors as well, obviously Shell and VGW play, that both have yellow in their logos. It brings it all together. It's a nice little highlight colour. I'm happy with how they've implemented it here. And I'll try and implement it on my redesign as well. That front on angle is going to be very red. I said it before, I say it again. That is super important for legibility on TV, that front on angle. Even like the wheel covers are very red. And they've got the yellow and they've got the white in as well. You've shown a team like Alpine ultimately how it's done. You can utilise full big colour. We've seen the car testing out in Fiorano as well. This is not gas. This is what the livery is actually going to look like. Is it perfect? No. That side pod is very busy now. They've always had, well, in recent years anyway, they've had Ray-Ban, Saver Logistics and Shell on that side pod. We've come to expect that. Now they've put Peroni in there as well, below the Saver. For me, you've got a space right there. Like there's a space at the top. Just chuck one up there, Peroni, Saver, whoever, right? I've done Peroni for this little mock-up. That balances out, makes the car look a lot less busy from that side-on angle. It gives them two brands as well. I think Saver and Peroni just blend into each other. So if you give them separate, positioning on the car, they both look a bit more legible. This top-down angle, we never see the cars from this angle, but I'd argue that's actually my favourite angle of the car. You can see the pinstripe detail on the rear wing. You can see the bit of red in the front wing as well, which they haven't always included. And the way that the carbon and the pinstriping comes down the side pods, that's lovely. I want to see the car from this angle a bit more often. It would be terrible for a viewing experience, but it looks pretty. Outside that, I don't really have any criticism. So for me, this has to go in banger. But behind Aston Martin, they've both got very little to critique. I just like the Aston a little bit more. I don't know, there's just something about it. The colours generally, even though red's my favourite colour, I actually dig the Aston a little bit more. But they're both banging, no doubt. Now, I did start on my livery redesign once we saw the driver suits, because that had something for me to go off in terms of the look and feel that they're going for. Also, some of the sponsors that be carrying on to the car. And what those suits told me was that they've gone for kind of a slightly retro feel to it, which I think you'd agree the real car with the pinstriping makes it feel like something that could have been from the 70s or the 80s. So I've done the same with my car, just a bit more aggressively. So here's my redesign of the 2024 Ferrari Formula 1. Look, I'm a sucker for Ferrari with a bit of white on it. For me, growing up, the Schumacher era, big white on the front wing, big white on the rear wing as well. But also, this harks back to a time before then. I think the late 70s, Ferrari 312 style, right? A lot of white on those cars back in the day. Not so much yellow. They did highlight that with the Italian flag, but this is where I have carried the yellow over from the real thing. Starting with the side-on profile, wheel covers, pretty similar to the real thing. Really embraced the red and the yellow there. In terms of the 3 main sponsors on the side pod, I've swapped Ray-Ban and Saver around and then moved Peroni up to the top. Santander sits on the white here, the white that kind of partitions through the car. Santander red logo on white background works perfectly for them as well. If anything, that makes them stand out even more. AWS is also there in full color. You can get away with full color a bit more on white, and as that logo has yellow in it, and then the AWS is just black, so that works fine. That works fine for me. Also, you can see the numbers. I've tried something a little bit different. The one thing with white numbers with a yellow outline is that does become quite difficult to read at a distance. Black numbers on a white outline work a lot better, I think. Coming down to the front wing and nose, all of the sponsors are the same. I've moved a few of them around. I wanted Shell to kind of be above the yellow line. I've got partitioning through. AWS VGW Play has come down a little. You can see I've kind of blacked out the top of the nose, a strip. I did that on my Williams Golf livery redesign that I did last year, actually. That kind of black bar just across. It gives me that retroness, that retro, got a solid partition. It gives a bit of black space to let Richard Mille and Genesis sing as well as logos on the car, and the Scuderia Ferrari badge just on the side. We've got the yellow pinstripe across the front wing, just a subtle kind of in the middle, and then I've carried the red over from the real car but then whited out the top of the rear wing to just make it pop. From a front on angle, I think this car looks very legible, very retro. You can see I've made the gullies carbon fibre just like on the real thing. I want this to look somewhat realistic as much as I can. There's a bit of carbon fibre on the inside of the halo as well. And I've got the sponsors kind of underneath that little black strip. A lot of the cars that have a lot of sponsors tend to have that. They'll just reserve a little bit of black at the bottom of the side pod. Just a bunch of sponsors there. Nice. The rear wing, I've tried to be a bit creative here. So I wanted the black Ferrari text on a white background, but then I've included the red with the yellow pinstripe just as a little rectangle, just to give it a little bit more poppity. Because then you come around to this side angle and we've got carbon on the side end plate of the rear wing and red. I've flipped the way it is in real life just because I think it works better on this livery. Big B&O on the inside as well, VGW Play V-Power, nice. And I've put a Ferrari logo on the back of the rear wing. You can't actually see from the renders, or at least I've not seen from the renders, what logo is on the back of the rear wing. Just put Ferrari on it and it will look great. And there we have it. That is my take on the 2024 Ferrari. I'm very, very interested to see what you lot think of this one, actually. I think it looks really cool. Obviously, I've been looking at it for a long time, right? And I've designed it myself. So it's always very difficult. Like when I design these liveries, I'll get most of it done, I'll go to bed, I'll come back the next day and I'll look at it with a fresh set of eyes, and sometimes my perspective is totally different. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. I'll pin a comment with Team Real Life, the real thing, and Team Tommo, so like which one you prefer, the real thing or mine. 2 more to go, Mercedes and Red Bull, although we already know the Red Bull is basically the exact same car based off the spy shots that we've already seen of the car doing its shakedown in Silverstone. So I might as well crack on with the Red Bull next, actually, because we just know that's not going to be any different, so I'll just try something totally different for it. Anyway, like, subscribe if you enjoyed this video. My name's Tommo, thanks again, have a good one, ta-da.